Welcome to the Save Childhood podcast with Jennifer McCarville. Because childhood has changed, but children have not. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Save Childhood podcast.
I'm Jennifer McCarville.
And I'm Nicole Dugan. And what if we told you kindergarten is actually not required?
What?
Yeah, would you be shocked? Are you shocked by that information?
Yeah. Shocking.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And not required. What does that mean, right? We're going to talk about that today.
We're going to talk about it because not a lot of people know about it, and it's important.
It is important.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we always talk about it like it's official and required and everybody has to go. And the reality is the majority of states in the United States don't require children to attend kindergarten.
Right.
And we're here in Texas, and we are one of the states that doesn't require it. So, but we think that is a rite of passage. You get ready with your backpack and your back to school pictures, and we're just seems like the next right thing once your child turns 5, because that's what everyone else is doing it. So I guess the motherly question is, if everyone was jumping off a cliff, would you jump off the cliff too?
Right.
This is one of those things. It's required. It seems that's what we're supposed to do. But we are in this beautiful place, I think, in society as parents and educators, where we are realizing that we actually can and probably should question some things that are expected of our children.
Right.
And when you are in an environment educating through a developmental lens, you question all the things that seem to contradict with development. And it is surprising, but the reality is it's not necessarily a bad thing. I just want to say that too. It's not that kindergarten is always a bad thing.
Right.
And it's not that there aren't some children that love it.
Right. And it's not that teachers aren't doing great work.
Beautiful work,
Mm-hmm.
of course. But I think if you talk to a lot of kindergarten teachers, they will tell you that it's breaking the children.
Mm.
And in fact, we know that because we talk to those kindergarten teachers, and the expectations and the environment itself. Is it developmentally aligned? But it's not that teachers are doing anything harmful. We always want to say that.
Yeah.
But it's whether or not the version of kindergarten that children are being forced to attend is honoring development.
Right.
Which, there are a lot of things that I often say, we're not perfect here at Save Childhood or Marvelously Made. No one is, but we don't get the development out of order.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And 5-year-olds are still young,
right? They need to play.
They do. They need to move.
Mm-hmm.
They need to hear stories.
Yeah. Songs.
Yeah. And they need to just have time and space to process the world. And through play and through those active experiences, they're able to learn skills that will sustain them their whole lives. They learn empathy through taking care of baby dolls and stuffed animals, and they learn how to get along with other children and other people by interacting with them in authentic ways.
Right.
And so we need to make sure that our children are in spaces that nurture the kind of learning and development that they need, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in too many places, rather than kindergarten being that place of, nurturing and growing into yourself and such, it's academic training.
Right.
And so I think we have to continually say, why are we doing it this way? And in this particular situation, we need to say, if it's not required, why are we acting like everyone has to do it, right?
Right. And that every child needs to be there.
And every child needs to be there, right? And honestly, does any child need to be there?
Right.
A lot of people will say, but they love it. Well, they also love chocolate cake, and McDonald's.
Yeah.
So just because we love something doesn't mean it's the best practice in the way we should spend the majority of our time or what have you. So, but the states decide this. There's not a national law, but it is a state to state. And so I encourage you to just, Google that, find out if your state requires kindergarten. Is it compulsory there, or is it, I will tell you, nationally, states are required to offer it.
Mm-hmm.
So kindergarten will be offered in your state. That does not mean children must attend it, right?
Right.
And I'll tell you, it's really funny. We were talking about this before we started, that I don't agree with a lot of what law says when it comes to education, especially. So it's funny that this is the law we're going to talk about and that we're going to cling to, right? But the truth is this might be a good one.
Mm-hmm.
This might be a good one. Even the law, as bad as it can be when it comes to education, even the law says we shouldn't require 5-year-olds to sit in kindergarten all day long. And, when I went to kindergarten, I don't know about when you did, it was half day.
Half day, yeah.
Yeah, it was half day. And, my oldest child is 30, turning 30 in a few months. And I looked and looked for a public school kindergarten for her that was half day. And the year before she went to kindergarten, and we have some huge school districts here in our area, and the year before she went to kindergarten was the last year. It was one school, one campus, and one of our big districts, not even in each district. And we have 3 really large districts in our area, but one of them still offered half-day kindergarten, and the year before she went to kindergarten, they got rid of it.
Yeah.
Was the last year they had it.
Right.
So we did end up putting her in a private school kindergarten.
And so why do some states make it mandatory?
Well, there are some reasons, and of course they're well-intended, I'm sure. But one is that they want equity. They want all the children to be able to have the same advantages and opportunities.
Okay.
Again, is it an advantage?
Right.
Right. They tout school readiness. We've got to be ready. And, what we know about development is you can't push it. You get ready by honoring where children are, not by pushing down, what will develop in the next phases, right?
Right.
Because when our school readiness is really a very, really become a detrimental concept for children. In the name of readiness, we're taking away layers of development that need to be nurtured and that need to be solid to build on. So that readiness is one, and everybody gets, parents want good things for their children, right? Like we want them to be ready. The last thing that we want is for our children not to be prepared,
right,
for things not to go well for them. But in the long term, that does not serve them well. And then there are literacy concerns. There's always the foundation of literacy and learning. And so many states feel like when you are testing in 3rd grade is what they're looking at, those scores, when those scores aren't what the districts think they should be, they want to start preparing children younger and younger.
Right, pushing it down.
They just push it down the pipeline like, okay, well, they're having a hard time in 3rd grade. Let's do 2nd grade. Let's do 1st grade. Let's do, 5-year-olds. And now many states are offering and making a real appealing argument for families to take children younger than pre-K even now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And 3-year-olds. And in the state of Texas, they've, in the fall of 2025, they approved incorporating children as young as infants.
Wow.
And that's a talk for another episode. But another thing that they really believe for kindergarten being important is that it will, the system alignment of that it's the path to 1st grade, it creates a more uniform kind of, we're headed this direction. And if they all go to kindergarten, again, we can do it earlier. Let's do it earlier. Let's do it earlier. Let's do it earlier.
Yeah.
So, and then they'll have the argument probably about attendance. It helps them project how to better prepare for the subsequent years. Again, this whole concept of getting ready just robs us of being present where we need to be.
Right.
Focusing, learning. You can do both, but sometimes you have to plan for a few scenarios.
Right.
Because also we are a very transient society, right? People move. Just because your enrollment is this one year, it fluctuates, it changes. It does give you a little bit of an idea for sure. But of course, the intention is to help children.
Right.
Right? Unfortunately, the people who make these decisions don't understand how children grow.
Right.
What they really need to develop. So, here, Safe Childhood, that is our number one priority, is to make sure that we're giving children the childhood they deserve, not pulling them into a system that doesn't even consider their development, much less was it built for their development.
Right.
So it's just something that once you're aware of, hopefully you can't not think about as a parent.
Yeah.
So, and it can be good, but the problem is, let me say this, it could be good. I don't know of anywhere that it is. So.
Oh, what about our school?
Oh, yeah. Our school. Good point. I was thinking in more public school situations and even charter school situations. But you're right. There are some private schools. And if you are listening and you're in an area that has great developmentally aligned kindergarten public school options, I would be so excited to hear about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not saying they're not out there. I'm just saying that we don't know of any.
Right. And except for ours.
Except for ours. Yes,
but
I'm just
instead
talking
of a
about
place
public.
of like movement and songs and nature and being outside,
building
and painting,
with blocks, painting,
pretend play,
and learning how to solve conflict and what to do with your emotions and having emotions.
Right, and having the time and space to express yourself and learn what to do with your emotions.
Yeah. That's
instead
really...
of that, it's become a watered down first grade.
There was a study called "Is Kindergarten the New First Grade?" And they talked about, I'm going to look at my notes for this, but between 1998 and 2010, kindergarten classrooms changed substantially. Teachers reported higher academic expectations, more time on advanced literacy and math, more teacher-directed instruction and assessment, and less time for these things that we're talking about. Yeah. Less time for the things that children actually need.
Right. And if you're skipping those foundational pieces, they're not, you might think they're getting ready for first grade, but they're missing the core foundational pieces that they need.
Right. Yeah. The motor systems, the sensory systems, the language foundations, the mathematical thinking. We're just skipping over all of that. And don't you think it's interesting that in this, in these same windows of time, they've extended the kindergarten day, and yet and the academic pressure has become the new first grade. And I mean, now it might even be beyond that. But it's not getting better, it's getting worse.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Right.
Yeah. So we need to make sure that what we're realizing is not that it's becoming more available, but it is becoming more academic. And of course, academics, we can make a strong argument for what is academics. And in this regard, we're talking about traditional, formal reading, writing, arithmetic, being able to produce in an abstract way some information that you've learned. And we've talked about this in a previous episode too, that it's very misleading because young children do the part of the brain that has hold during these early years stores pictures. So children can regurgitate some things like words that they see, simple words and things that they recognize the picture of. So that feels like they're learning to read. And those are important components of being able to read, is identifying some words just by sight very quickly. That is one component, of course. And also, you can get children to memorize information and feed it back to you. That's not learning.
Right.
And so instead of looking at the development and making sure we're honoring that, we're looking at the output, and we are making the major we're under the major misconception that is actual learning. So we have two huge problems. One is that's not true learning, and the other is we're compromising what they need to be developing so that we can feel like they're learning academics.
Right.
And the academics will come, and they are important, obviously.
Right. So the problem is twofold.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what do these children, young children, 5 years old, 6 years old, what do they need?
Well, we talked a little bit about what they need. I think another thing we talked about, they need to be moving and painting and creating and listening to stories and telling stories and, thinking mathematically just as they go throughout the day. Like, oh, I have 3 and you have 1. How many do we have together? Or what do you think will happen if I drop one of these? Then how many would I have? Just having conversations with them about pattern and symmetry and, just having their brain spend time in those places. But they need secure relationships. That's the number one thing. They need secure relationships that feel emotionally grounded and attached, and they're genuine. And you can't have a genuine relationship in an environment where children aren't moving, where you're not able to interact with them in authentic ways. We know so many people who talk to us as educators that, they're not even allowed to give a child a hug. They're 4, they're 5 years old. And that definitely is detrimental to their emotional growth.
Yeah. So
secure relationships that say, I see you, I hear you, you matter, in a consistent daily practice. Yeah. They need long stretches of play. They need a lot of time to get deeply engaged in what they are interested in.
Right, not adult-led play.
Right, not we're going to play a game. That's not the kind of play we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about child-initiated play. We can create these environments that as they play, they are stimulated and they have novel things in them, and those things will grow neural pathways, and that's important, but long stretches of play. And I can tell you, my son who's 27, when I sat in his kindergarten room once a week as a parent volunteer, I actually wasn't allowed to be in his room. I could sit in the closet between his room and the class on the other side, and I would pull out all of the worksheets they were going to use for the next week and organize them. So I was doing that, and I would listen to his teacher every 15 minutes or so, clap her hands and say, okay, put that away. Now we're going to do math. Okay, put that away. Now we're going to read. Okay. I mean, it was literally every 15, maybe 20 minutes, but that's only if she was running behind. That's not a long stretch of time, and it's definitely not play. So, and I can only imagine what that's like right now. That was 27 years ago, and it's not getting better. We know it's getting worse.
Right.
So they need that. They need outdoor time and movement. Outside, outside, outside.
Yeah, we know that's one of the major problems right now, that children of all ages aren't outside enough.
Right.
And that's part of the mental health piece too,
Absolutely.
the crisis that we have. Yeah.
It's part of also, it harms their vision. They, all the things that come from being out in nature and sunshine, and, the vitamin D, the circadian rhythms, all the things that being outside, and then they naturally have these opportunities to develop their motor skills. They're developing balance. They're developing, as they swing and dig and carry, their proprioceptive systems are being fine-tuned, and they're getting a strong core, which you need to write, to sit up. And, so outdoor movement and lots of it. And then lots of language.
Yeah.
And genuine language, storytelling. Over books, over book reading in these early years, storytelling, lots of rich language, and talking about interesting things. They're sitting in these classrooms looking at worksheets and talking about things that aren't even interesting. So you're not developing a rich vocabulary, an applicable vocabulary, which a high vocabulary is one of the strong indicators of a solid reader. So they're having these very shallow vocabularies, where the language is just really dumbed down, but we have to dumb it down in order for them to memorize it and regurgitate it. So we think that they've learned something. So, and real work, they need to be doing things that matter. They need to be, creating things. They need to be messing about with things and having the power that they change it with the things that they bring into the play. And we can't say enough about art.
Right.
Art and handwork, just really engaging their hands engages their brains, and not engaging their hands by requiring that they hold pencils.
Right.
Right.
We mean working with clay.
Right.
Things.
Paintbrushes, large movement, having that large movement. You got to move big before you move small. And they are still so young.
Right.
Let's savor that time because it's on the way out, And so that, again, long periods of time to just interact with their environment, right? Yeah. And kindergarten's just not necessary in the way the things that children really need, like love. Play is necessary, love is necessary, relationships, rest, language, movement, those things are necessary. In the box, 7-8 hours a day, move like we tell you, sit still, don't talk, don't touch, don't move.
Right.
That is not necessary. In fact, it's detrimental.
Right.
It's really unfortunate.
Yeah. Because often normal 5-year-old behavior in the classroom is considered a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here are some reasons that this current version we have of kindergarten isn't developmentally aligned. Let's talk about some of those. And I think we kind of have. We're sprinkling that in there.
Yeah.
Expecting them to sit for long periods of time.
Right.
Not okay. Expecting them to have the emotional regulation of an adult, basically. We know social emotional growth is the largest part in the early childhood years through 8th grade for sure. And yet we're expecting them to come into these environments that are very, very clinical, very rigid. They're not warm and nurturing in the colors of the walls and the furniture that's used. It doesn't even feel like this emotionally gentle enveloping place, like a little cocoon, which is so vitally important. But we instead are expecting them to come, sit still, and be able to regulate their emotions.
Right.
Like an adult. And because we're expecting that, we're raising children who never know how to regulate their emotions.
Right.
And they just are, they're struggling.
Right.
We know that.
Recess and outdoor time has been reduced. We know that.
Yeah, there are a lot of states that don't have recess at all anymore. And if they do have recess, it tends to be about 15 minutes. But we go back to what we know through development, which is they need long periods of time. 15 minutes is not a long period of time.
Right.
Just hate to tell you.
Right.
Especially, I mean, it is if you're doing something that's, not aligned with development or makes you miserable.
Yeah, there's a lot of testing and assessment that happens in kindergarten now that isn't appropriate.
Yeah, formal paper testing and checklists and not authentic assessment.
Right.
As really skilled, knowledgeable teachers can observe the interactions in the play, and they can assess where a child is and what they need.
So it sounds like they're confusing compliance with readiness.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, isn't that true? The quieter you sit, what was it? I can't remember who it was that said sitting still and being quiet are not marketable job skills. Right? Everyone's going to make arguments for that, of course, but it's true. You need to be able to think. You need to be able to ask questions. No one's going to ask you when they're interviewing you for a position, how long can you sit still and be quiet?
Right.
It's just, when you're engaged in the work, and then you're choosing the work you get to do, so you have the opportunity to be more engaged.
Right.
These children aren't choosing this. And of course, we're always going to have things as we grow and in life that we have to do that we don't choose. We would never imply that life should be full of only the choices that they want.
Right.
That's not realistic or healthy.
Right.
But it is appropriate to give them the majority of their environment should match that development.
Right. And so we're not saying a 5-year-old can't memorize things. Of course they can, but it shouldn't be what their day is centered around.
Absolutely not.
It shouldn't be what they're doing and spending their time on, the majority of their time memorizing and regurgitating information.
Yeah. And I mean, I just think knowing what it looks like, those are just warning bells. Those are signals like, whoa, you're right. Your child shouldn't be so stressed out in kindergarten. They're not supposed to be in an institution that, all day long.
Right.
They're just not meant to do that. If we could create places that are made for children, that would be very different. We're going the wrong direction though.
Right.
But, and that is, I think we get confused because they can memorize things and we think that's, oh, good, memorize more.
Right.
So, and I think a huge piece of this that we need to talk about is how parents are pressured.
Yeah. Parents do feel pressure to put their children in kindergarten and in schools environments that they know in their gut are not the best for them.
Right. They're worried they're going to be behind.
Okay.
Right. We talked about that at the beginning too, but they don't want them to miss anything.
Yeah.
And they don't want them to be behind. And of course, we go back to the behind what. Once we change that conversation and we put that in perspective, like what are they behind?
Right.
And even if you're going to compare one child to another, and it's impossible to equally compare children because of birth order and environmental experiences and, all of those things that play temperament. However, if we were going to take children born in the same month, on the same day even, and we were going to compare them, even if one is stronger in one area than another, it starts to level out.
Right.
As they move through these early childhood years, by the end of 3rd grade, most of that does level out.
Right.
You can also expect that in the 2nd grade year, sometimes the 1st grade year, there are other things where teachers who are knowledgeable can observe, and they can see some flags that say, we should have that checked out just to make sure that everything is on the right path. Those things happen. And no matter how early you start academic training for children, you are not going to eliminate struggles.
Right.
So it's a complete misconception that if we start doing this earlier, we're not going to have any challenges. We're not going to be behind in anything. That's not realistic.
Right.
It's not human.
Right.
Just as human beings, we are all strong in things and weak in things, and that has to be okay.
And I can understand how parents would feel pressure because, like you said, they want the best things for their children and the right things.
Absolutely.
And so I understand why they might feel that way. But what we're trying to say today is we're trying to empower you with this information that it is not required and the reasons why it's usually not appropriate.
Yeah. And to have some, just fill you with a little bit of information and things to observe and think about.
Right.
Like if this is happening, because what we do know is parents will change education. And that's only going to happen in a positive way when parents start to really be equipped with the information about development.
Yeah.
And there are so many of us that know it. Like, this just doesn't feel right. And when you feel that way, stepping back and saying, well, maybe my child's just going through a hard time and they're going to grow through this and they're going to learn and adapt because it is appropriate to expect it. But we need to recognize that the child who's spending hours playing and building and painting and moving and climbing, that is building this foundation that will help them soar academically down the road.
Right.
And for all the things that we're getting wrong in education in our country, right? The fact that so many states do not require kindergarten is something that we're getting right, and that parents can really take in that information and just kind of mull over it and consider, just because it's there and we feel like everybody's doing it, is it serving my child the best?
Right.
And that's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah.
And we do know in the schools that do the countries that do the best with their schooling, the children don't start formal academic instruction until about the age of 7. So not going to kindergarten gives you that time to develop, or going to a kindergarten that is developmentally aligned, because that's a beautiful thing, right? What a lovely way to spend your days. Doing that and taking that year to grow and develop and strengthen your foundation is closer to aligning with the developmental trajectory of children, of what is typical for children.
Right.
So it's a beautiful thing to know, hey, this is not something we actually have to do.
Right. You have a choice.
You have a choice.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have too many choices, but this is a really important choice, right? And there's some things to think about before you send your child to kindergarten, of course. Like, can they communicate their basic needs, right? Can they separate from you with support, right?
Can they listen to a short story?
Yeah. And if that's something that they're not ready to do yet, that has to be okay. But if you put them in an inappropriate kindergarten environment, it's not going to be okay.
Right.
Are they curious? We want that. We don't want to put them in an environment that's just going to, just kind of squelch that curiosity and wonder. Are they able to ask questions? These are all some helpful cues as to whether or not they're even ready to be away from you and in an environment especially in an environment that's inappropriately structured.
Right. So the question isn't just, should kindergarten be required? It is more about what kind of childhood we're giving the children and requiring from them.
Yep, that is the big question. Always the big question. What is the childhood we're giving them? And is it one that's going to serve them well for a big, long life?
Right.
Yeah. And that's always going to be the one that aligns with development.
Yeah.
We're going to save childhood.
Yes, let's do it. Hey, you can also find us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Follow and like, comment, and help spread the word of the Safe Childhood movement. You can find out more at safechildhood.org.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us today. To learn more and join the movement, go to safechildhood.org.